This is Camura Oscura. We're here at the top of the city here. We can see all of Havana. This is where the capital is. So you can see a lot of the capital right here. It's beautiful. Invented by Leonardo da Vinci, the Camera Oscura projects a 360-degree panoramic view of old Havana. Real-time images of the city are projected into a darkroom using basic principles of light and reflection. It is the only one of its kind in Latin America and the Caribbean.
Lo que realmente va pasando abajo, subimos a cars, persons. Yeah, this is real time. You're kind of in a reverse cycle. That's going to make a break sure that. James, it's a wet all the
So back to our money issue. We quickly ran out of money. So we found the nearest ATM machine with the understanding that we would get a horrible exchange rate. What we found was that the ATMs in Cuba currently do not even accept any cards from America. The 2 cards that we tried were immediately declined. So now we had to move on to plan B. We found out that there was a Western Union somewhere in Old Havana. We just had to call somebody in the United States. But our phones had no service in Cuba, even though we have international service on our cell phone plan. By afternoon, with the little money we had, we went to a nearby hotel that had internet, and we contacted Yasmin, my sister-in-law, through internet texting apps. She actually had wanted to go on this trip, but we couldn't work out the logistics. But even voice calls were not allowed through the apps, just texting. She immediately wired us the money in Rahima's name, which we planned to pick up the next day. With only granola bars left, we had to figure out what we were going to do for food until tomorrow. We went to the nearest grocery store to find maybe some fruits, vegetables, and eggs. But because of the Cuban embargo, most of the food that would be imported into the US out of season were just not available in Cuba. The only fresh produce we saw were these large avocados. We spoke to the landlord's in-laws that were next door to us, and they recommended some places that we would find some of the things that we were looking for. We ended up going to a nearby grocery store and got some pasta and sauce for about 3 pesos, which left us with only about 10 pesos. But to our surprise, we enter our apartment and Marcel, the manager of the apartment, had left us some food.
So you know our predicament that we lost my wallet, so we lost a lot of the money that we had. So we were a little bit worried about food, where we were going to get food. But look, we came in and we have eggs, we have bananas, we have bread, we have, I don't know what this is. I think this is I think this is not a guava, I think this is a avocado. I think so. We got plátano, we got lemon. See, this shows the beauty of the Cuban people. I mean, they understand our needs and they helped us out. We didn't even ask. Alhamdulillah.
dominant religion in Cuba is Catholicism. Before the Cuban Revolution of Fidel Castro, all the other religions were outlawed. The enslaved Africans who were brought to Cuba were forced to convert to Catholicism. However, many of them mixed African polytheistic beliefs with Catholicism and created a hybrid religion called Santeria, or Way of the Saints. However, despite the strong influence of African pagan beliefs in Cuba, remnants of African Muslim culture emerges through common Cuban names such as Ibrahim, Jamila, Medina, Omar, Minna, and even in some of the music of Santeria.
Dice salam aleikum, aleikum salam. Dice salam aleikum, aleikum salam. Dice somos no somos, somos. Dice somos no somos, somos. Santo Tomás, ve para creer. Santo Tomás, ve para creer. Ana, 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 la 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 la, ana la la, la la la, la 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 la, la la la. No crea que porque canto traigo el coral.
Pero bueno, ya son las horas. Ya son las horas, salam aleikum. Salam aleikum, aleikum salam. Ororo, ya son las horas. Llego a Guaco, lo más sublime. Oye, para el alma divertir.
Even some of the rituals of Santeria resemble some of the practices and traditions of African Muslims. In 1959, when Fidel Castro came to power, he prohibited all religions. However, as years passed, the government relaxed these restrictions. Catholicism and Santeria became the two most popular religions in Cuba. Back in the Middle Ages, Muslim troops from North Africa called Moors conquered Hispania, an area that included most of modern-day Spain and Portugal. This area became known as Al-Andalus. The Moors were brilliant architects, mathematicians, scientists, and astronomers, and they helped pull all of Europe from the Dark Ages into the Renaissance. Islam remained in Al-Andalus for more than 700 years, until 1492, the year that the last Muslim ruler in Granada was defeated. Catholicism became the only religion allowed in Spain, and Muslims and Jews were required to convert or face expulsion or even death. 1492 was also the year that Columbus reached the Caribbean and landed in Cuba. Soon after his arrival, the Spanish colonizers began subjugating the native Taino people, and Catholicism was imposed. Nevertheless, knowledge, arts, and music from the Moors of Al-Andalus was transported to Cuba. Words like azúcar, sugar, arroz, rice, aceite, oil, all come from Arabic. Even words like fulano, which comes from the Arabic word fulan, which means so-and-so, and ojalá, or hopefully, or God willing, come from the Arabic language. Al-Andalus wasn't completely Arab, African, or European. It was multicultural, multi-ethnic, something Cubans are very comfortable with. So when Cubans encounter Islam, they find the camaraderie, respect, and the ethnic diversity of Muslims familiar and appealing. ¿Cómo te llamas?
Ahmed Abdul-Salam.
Mi padre, my father is also named Ahmed Abdul-Salam.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah, MashaAllah.
Also, many of the African slaves that were brought to Cuba were Muslim.
Vivía cuando el maguey se batía con el machete en la mano, con el machete en la mano.
The next morning, we head over to Western Union Station at a money exchange shop. After standing in line for nearly an hour, we found out that the money cannot be transferred to a non-Cuban. Only Cuban citizens are allowed to receive money from America. The lady at the money exchange offered us to send money to her personal bank account. We just had to trust her that she would give us the money. 4 hours later, and success, alhamdulillah. This was a good lesson to learn for people who may happen to be overseas and lose their money. Within 5 minutes of arriving to our destination in Havana, my wallet was gone. But alhamdulillah, we were able to make it through.
Saoudien. Blaise Mawete. Gadi Fankeng, le grand Camerounais.
This Deen TV video was brought to you in part by Penny Appeal USA, Small Change, Big Difference, by Islamic Relief, Working Together for a Better World, and by Guidance Residential, the #1 Islamic home financer in the U.S.